This equation is different because there's not a single fraction on each side. This -1 here really kind of messes things up. And the way we're going to tackle these types of problems is by going through and trying to look at each fraction and find the least common denominator. But we're not going to do quite the same thing we did when we added them. Our goal here really is to get all these denominators to cancel out, because if these denominators weren't here, we wouldn't have a problem. It looked like something we already knew how to solve. And the way you cancel out all the denominators is by multiplying every part of this equation by the LCD. Now before we can go through the task of finding the LCD, we need to look at each denominator and factor it if possible. And you might be thinking, well, nothing here factors, but be careful. This guy does factor because you can pull out a common factor of 4. So let me go ahead and do that. I want to look at this in factored form as much as possible. And the goal is to find something that I can multiply everything by so that this cancels and that these also cancel. So let's look at this. If I wanted this to cancel, I would need to multiply it by a 4 and by a v minus 6. There's nothing over here except for a 1, so I don't need to worry about this part very much at all. And then this guy, I would need to multiply by a v minus 6, and I already have it in my LCD. So this is a thing that I can multiply everything by, and it'll make all the denominators cancel. So I'm going to just quickly rewrite everything very neatly and give myself some space for multiplication of stuff. And what I'm going to do here actually next is I'm going to show you kind of what happens in my head. When it all gets written out, it looks kind of, it's not pretty to look at. And so I'm going to show you kind of a way to do it. Let me move this over a little bit. What I'm going to do is basically multiply this by 4 times v minus 6, and I'll multiply this guy by 4 times v minus 6, and I'll multiply this last thing by 4 times v minus 6. And what's going to happen is these will cancel, and these will cancel, leaving me just with the 8. For this middle part, nothing cancels at all, so I'm left with a negative 1 times 4 times v minus 6. And then for this last part, these v minus 6's cancel, leaving me just with an 8. So what I have is 8 minus 4 times v minus 6 equals 8. Now I've found that some kids, when you write this step out, they don't like this at all. Like, it confuses them. So I just want to kind of quickly rewrite everything and show you how I actually do it when I'm doing it on my paper, and you can give that a try yourself and see if you like that better, but I want to pause so you don't see me rewriting everything all over again. So normally when I'm actually doing this myself, once I've determined what I have to multiply everything by, I kind of do this mentally and say to myself, if I were to multiply this 4 times v minus 6 times this first term here, the 4's and the v minus 6's would both cancel, leave me just an 8, and that's usually what I put on my paper. If I were to take 4 times v minus 6 times this part here, nothing would cancel off at all, so I'll have a negative 4 times v minus 6. And if I were to take 4 times v minus 6 times this part here, the v minus 6's would cancel, leave me just with 2 times 4. This hopefully reminds you of that thing earlier in the year when we were doing equations with fractions, and this is kind of what I was thinking of when I wanted you guys to do that. Thinking about how multiplying something that will cancel the denominators can be done kind of in your head mentally. And this is kind of mission accomplished because we now have an equation that looks very solvable. You know, you guys have done this 1,000 times. It's stuff that Miss Levin taught you, or whoever else. I don't want to say any more names because it's on YouTube. But, you know who you had. Let's see, 32 equals 8. That means negative 4v equals negative 24, and then that means that v is going to equal 6, or so it would seem. However, we have a problem. We have to go back to the original equation, and I noticed that if v were to equal 6, I would have a division by 0 here, and I'd have a division by 0 here. And I only need it in one place to not count. V can't actually equal 6. That's not allowed. So after all this work, what we find is that the answer is no solution. So the trick here, what I want you guys to understand, is to make it look like a problem you know how to solve. And the way you make it look like a problem you know how to solve is you get rid of the part that looks weird. You get these denominators to cancel. And the way you do that is by finding the least common denominator, so that when you multiply this by each part of this, these parts that are making it a fraction go away. Alright, good luck with these.